Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Grafton Select Board meeting for January 4th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting open at 7 p.m. As we're conducting fully remote today, I just would like to remind everyone that the emergency notice in which we can attend remote meetings is posted on the town's website. Going forward, I just want to call, make sure we have full attendance here today. When I please call your name, please respond in the affirmative. I'm going to start with Ms. DeFazio.
DeFazio's here.
Mr. Mead.
Mead's here.
Mr. Often.
I am here.
Ms. Roy.
Roy here.
All right. And staff members, when I please call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Brassard.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. All right. So first order of business here, I would ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, but I don't have a flag handy. So with your permission, we'll skip over that tonight. I don't have any announcements, as Mr. Brassard will update us during TA reports on just some recent developments. So I'm going to wait and hold off on that. And at this point in time, if there's anybody in the attendees list that would wish to address the Select Board and public comment, please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting and I can let you in, and I'll just give everyone a few minutes because I know we're all remote today. All right, there's only one person in the attendees list. Okay, so moving on. I would ask the board for tonight. We had put a placeholder on here last week thinking that there would be someone who would be interested in a one-day beer and wine license, but they notified the town administrator's office over the weekend that they're no longer seeking that. So I'd ask we pass over that tonight. So first thing up is resignations for school committee member for Rahul. I just wanted to make sure we kind of set forth process here. I do have some updates for you. I was notified that the meeting notices went out. I'm sorry, the vacancies notices went out Thursday of last week, but they won't be in the paper until the 6th of this week. So 14 days from then, we're going to be posting all the way to, I believe, the 20th of January, which is the Thursday, the third week in January. So I wanted to ask the board tonight and set a schedule for a joint select board and school committee meeting for interviews and appointment process. If the 25th or the 27th of January works for all of you.
Works for me.
Both of those dates work for me.
Colleen?
Yeah, those both work for me. Is February 1st being considered at all?
We're going to start here first, and if I don't get any feedback, if the school committee feels that they need another week, then I would probably know by, either next Tuesday, the 11th or 18th. So I figure we'd throw some dates out to them at that week. They're 2 days. I'm thinking 6 p.m., by the way. I didn't mention that before, but I was thinking we would have the meeting at 6 p.m. So if anyone has a 7 o'clock meeting, I was thinking we could probably get that over with. And people can be at either their subcommittee meetings or their regular committee meetings for that day. So right now, no, I didn't throw out any dates for the first, but just throw out these two today for the 25th and the 27th to start. And if we have to come back, I'll ask if the first or the third works for anybody.
Does look like the chair of the school committee has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Let me allow her to talk. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Looks like we're doing this remote thing again.
Yeah, I forgot what it was all about.
I wanted to let you know that I can actually save you a week. I did have Jay straw poll the committee, and in order to give enough time for the notice and everything, we did tell him that February 1st would be preferred for us. We are meeting the Tuesday of the other week that you had in mind, but we don't want to try to combine meetings if we can avoid it.
Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do then. If that works for you, can we do a 6 o'clock meeting? Because we will have a meeting on February 1st at 7 p.m.
I don't see why not.
Okay, is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yep, that sounds good.
All right. Amy, thank you very much. Then we'll go forward and we'll post for 6 p.m. on Monday, February 1st.
You guys will run the Zoom on your end then?
Yeah, because we're already gonna have a meeting that day. If that works for you, Amy, we can do that.
Works for me. Great. Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you
Thanks
very
so
much
much
for coming in. Cheers.
All right. Happy New Year.
You too.
All right, thank you, Amy. That was good, easy. All right, so first it is 6 PM. Okay. Got that through. We don't have any appointments for select board. We don't have any TA appointments tonight, correct, Evan?
Correct.
All right. All
Mr.
right.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Afton.
just a quickie. I'm not sure if this is in order, but there's a motion that was put in our packet to recognize the resignation.
We don't have to. It was just there in case we wanted to do it. If you want to read that motion, we could, it's not ours to accept, to be honest with you. It's just, we're part of the appointment process. It got put in there and I left it in there.
But let's just move on then. That's the school committee's
Mhm.
resignation to accept.
I agree. Okay. All right, moving on to new business. So tonight we have renewal of intermunicipal agreement with animal control, animal inspector positions. And tonight Evan's going to talk about what this is all about. This is something we do on an annual basis. In addition to that, he's just going to go over what the animal inspector duties and roles and responsibilities are with this intermunicipal agreement. And I'll hand this over to Evan.
All right, thank you. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we have an intermunicipal agreement with Westboro to provide animal control services. So our animal control person does most of your dogs, cats, domestic animal type of calls. The animal inspector position in Grafton is a little bit unique and took me a little while to figure out because you actually have two animal inspectors here in Grafton. So you have the animal inspector as outlined in our intermunicipal agreement with Westboro that does your quarantines, anything that has to do with live animal escape, things like that. You also have what Grafton calls an animal inspector that does essentially the barn inspection functions. And so those barn inspections are where they go out once a year and make sure that they have a count of the animals, make sure they have adequate housing, make sure that they have fresh food, water, and sanitary conditions, which interestingly enough was put in place back when we had tuberculosis outbreaks, and it was one of the ways to stem that. I believe the law went in either 1901 or 1921, but still pretty effective. At any rate, I just wanted to point out that you will see that this agreement covers animal inspector responsibilities, and we also have a separately appointed animal inspector that's appointed by me. And that's just one of those Grafton centric things that we do here, which works, but it's a little uncommon. So the budget that we have for this project or for this agreement with Westboro is that Grafton pays on a quarterly basis the following, which is 38% of the ACO's salary, 10% administrative fee, 38% of any expenses, and 38% of expenses, incurred by Westboro for employee benefits. So essentially 38% plus a 10% administrative fee, which for fiscal 23 comes out to, excuse me one second here, that's not the right one I want. It's a roughly $29,050. So far, in my opinion, the program has worked really well. And I haven't had any negative feedback at all about the program. So I would recommend that we vote, or that you vote to stay in the program.
Questions, Matt?
Yeah, Evan, what's the more common model? What are those functions in the same position with an employee or a regional service?
Usually, your animal inspector is all encompassing. So you'll either have an ACO that's separate from an animal inspector, or they're completely together. But in Grafton, you have just that one function carved out, which I will say does make it easier in some regards if you can find someone to do the barn inspection piece, because it's a once a year function. It requires not expertise, but it does help to have somebody that's familiar with livestock. Yep. So in the case of Grafton, you've had someone that was in place for 25-ish years, I believe. who knew what they were doing and what they were looking for and had a rapport with people. And now we've appointed Jay Houston, who is a local farmer. So he knows what he's looking for. So I think in this case, it's working just fine. But generally speaking, it's kind of an all or nothing. All in the IMA as a regional thing, or all outside for an animal control or animal
Okay.
inspector position.
I guess I was just looking to explore whether it would make sense to also be paying Westboro for that function, but it sounds like you're in favor of just sticking with the model that we have right now.
Yeah, personally, I think it works. As long, it took me a little while to figure out what was happening, but once I figured it out, it does work. I think that if we ever get to a point where, we need a barn inspector and can't find one, that's the juncture to have that conversation. But for whatever the stipend is, which I think is $2,500 or $2,900, it's kind of cheap to keep if it's working.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Colleen?
This is just throwing it out there. If we ever did get in a situation where we didn't have a barn inspector, is that something where Tufts could kind of step in and maybe help us out with that? Is that?
Yeah, so they just have to be appointed they're appointed by the board, they're recommended by the Board of Health and appointed by the state. And so you can name anybody that you want. And so you could probably get a veterinary student that's also a Grafton resident from somewhere like Tufts. This worked out when we had our retirement from the position. Jay heard about it and came in and volunteered for the position. We still posted it and everything, but we happened to get an ideal candidate, which is great. I can tell you that in other communities that I've either worked in or known about, they go sometimes decades without having anybody actually doing it. It's one of those oft overlooked positions. So we're actually in pretty good shape here in Grafton, which is nice.
Any other questions? All right, so you're looking for a motion for us to continue with this intermunicipal agreement. If there isn't any other questions from the board, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to renew the intermunicipal agreement for animal control, animal inspector services with the town of Westboro and the town of Shrewsbury.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. This will be rolled by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Mead,
Me die.
Mr. Often,
Often I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
next up, do we have any select board reports? Colleen?
TRICOM met and organized, so that is underway and plans to meet again sometime in February after the budget has been presented. And the Fire Chief Search Committee is going to be meeting for the first time on Thursday to do the same.
Okay. Any question? Any other one have any, Matt, do you have any reports?
No, I was just going to mention Tricom.
Okay. Okay, all right. Any other comments from the board? Nothing? I just want to let you know I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony. I know a number of you were able to attend. It was a great, beautiful Friday afternoon, the touch of wind, but I'll take the 55-degree weather and wind any day of the week. I just want to say and thank everyone who attended, who put that together. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Grafton Library, all the volunteers, the Grafton Library staff, Beth Galloway. In attendance, we had our representative from DC, McGovern was with us, with our state senator, Michael Moore, Representative David Meridian, our town administrator, Evan Brassard was in attendance with us. As well as myself and other select board members. I just want to say, if you have an opportunity, if time given, please go check out the new library. It's a wonderful asset to the town, and I was honored to be able to say a few remarks on its official grand opening. All right, next up, we got TA reports. Before we get into this, Evan, I would just ask if you could do the Board of Health update last.
Okay.
As that will coincide with the current state of COVID in Grafton and so on and so forth. I figured for meeting minutes purposes, that would help Cindy out tremendously.
Absolutely. We can
Thank you.
certainly do that.
All right.
So I wanted to touch briefly on where we're at with the municipal solid waste program. I know that the recycling and waste reduction committee is meeting Thursday night or Wednesday night of this week.
Next week.
next
Yeah,
week?
we're not, I was gonna bring it up at next week's meeting, so we're meeting next Wednesday, the 12th.
So I'm gonna try to have more information for that group just for talking points, but we are moving forward with the bag increase fee. That was supposed to take place January 1st. It turns out that the stores that use barcode readers need a little bit more lead time than we were giving them to update their system. So we are actually not able to change our fee until February 7th. So that will go into effect, and we will be sending out a release to that effect shortly. Excuse me. We are also, excuse me, sorry. More root beer will fix that problem, I guess. So we are, we're still also looking at different modes of waste removal. And we'll be able to give some feedback to both this board and the waste reduction committee, excuse me, to see if we can find other solutions than just the pay as you throw, or what other models are out there. So we have been digging into that substantially, and we'll have more information in the near future. For special town meeting, it does not look as though we are going to need to hold a special town meeting. Chris McGoldrick and I have spent quite a bit of time reviewing programs and meeting with DCHD. And they gave us, just to mention, DCHD was fantastic to work with. Very open organization, and really gave us some really great guidance. It looks as though we are both too affluent and too rural, I guess I would call it, to implement most of the TIF programs that are available for residential housing, which is a bummer. We were really looking forward to sinking our teeth into that and working with GSX on that project. We will be meeting with GSX in the next couple of days and talking through any other options that we may have to help that program along, or project along, and get us to the most amount of affordable housing we can possibly have on that site. So I don't think that news is any kind of a deal breaker, or doesn't make the project dead in the water. It just sends us in a different direction is all. But I do not believe we will need to have a special town meeting to take care of that. For goals progression, I don't have a huge update. Will and I are talking about restructuring the way that we've presented some of that information in a way that's a little bit more easily digestible and trackable. And then we're going to get back into the goals probably starting next week. This week is pretty much all about the budget. And so we've got our budget summit on Thursday with all the department heads in the school department. So we've really been kind of hyper focused on getting ready to go line by line through that budget. And this will be the first time that I'm aware of that Grafton has done kind of the collaborative, everybody looking at the budget at the same time and explaining why they're looking for what they're looking for. So really looking forward to that, and that will be on Thursday. And I think that is all I have until we get to current state of COVID in Grafton.
Any questions for Evan? Okay, I'm going to go into that and kind of combine the Board of Health update with the current state of real quick, let's just do that. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, so as I'm sure you're all aware by this point, the Board of Health voted last night to impose a mask mandate for all indoor activity in the town of Grafton. And that goes into effect. It was in effect immediately and will go until further notice. I did go back and forth with the Board of Health office today. They are looking to meet their regular schedule and address the issue at each meeting to figure out when they would want to lift that based on the numbers. They did not have a hard floor that they were looking at. If we get below X number of cases, I think they wanted to have a little more wiggle room and be able to look at trends a little bit more closely to determine when they would lift that. They also made a recommendation to suspend all public meetings for 30 days from last night. So that's something to take into consideration as well. And when I say suspend, I meant in person. Sorry. Is that where you're going, Colleen?
Yeah, 'cause I plan to meet.
As soon as I said there'd be no meetings, Colleen was outraged. So no, I caught myself as well. So what they meant was that they recommended that meetings go to virtual for the next 30 days as they watch what the case counts do here in Grafton. So we are seeing an unprecedented spike both here in Grafton, around the Commonwealth, and around the country. It's very fast moving. And that leads me into the second part, which is we did move today to close the municipal center until the 18th. We did not take that decision lightly. And so we are still going to be in the building as a skeleton crew. We will have one person per office and no overlap. The rest of the staff that is not in the building will be working remotely. We don't anticipate at the current time any loss of function or service to the community. The real deciding factor in making this move was really staffing based. We have a lot of staff that are out and some pretty key staff that are out with either COVID or COVID related issues, family, things like that. And we are, a couple of cases away from being in really bad shape. So rather than wait for that to happen, we decided to just hit pause. Hopefully let the COVID shake out here a little bit, and we'll reassess before the 18th. I'm hoping that is enough time to just get us a little breathing room and get some staff back and be able to open back up. So we are still available for Zoom, email, phone calls. We have a Dropbox outside. We can meet you at the door for paperwork. We can do a lot of things and still service the public. We're just going to try to do it with a skeleton crew and make that work, hopefully for only 2 weeks. I think that is all I have, unless you think I missed anything.
Thank you, Evan. Does anyone have any questions? So you said real quick, Evan, I just want to make sure I have my notes. The Board of Health is going to meet and look at what they would say is a reasonable floor to maybe lift the mask mandate. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they did not establish one at the last meeting. I think that they are looking for more data before they actually have a target that they're trying to hit. And I'm guessing, and this is my own personal speculation, that they are hoping that, as we're being told, this will be a short spike, a post-Christmas ramp up and then really appreciable drop, which will make it apparent when that time comes. But I know that they're looking to make it as short in duration as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions for anyone?
I think there's Colleen.
Yeah, I just had a question. So last night at the Board of Health meeting, one of the topics they were talking about is employers reporting cases, and they kind of had a bunch of questions about it. They put a pin in it and plan to come back to that.
Yes.
But one of the members did mention that was already happening previously. So did it stop happening, or is it still happening and they have questions on it? Or I was unclear about that.
No, it's my understanding that it stopped happening, and that they're looking to reinstate that. I don't understand. Not that I don't understand. I don't know the specifics of the members' concern about why they wanted to put a pin in that. I don't know if that was because of staffing on our end to be able to receive the reporting, or data wise, but I don't know if you caught that part of that meeting, Colleen, or understand that a little better than I do.
The members asking questions seem to have concern about what the employer's responsibility was, and when it just kind of got hazy, and if they did require tests, who were paying for the tests, and it started to go down a rabbit hole like that, and they didn't really have answers for it.
Okay, understood. yeah, I didn't catch that part of it, but we can certainly follow up on that. I don't have any, I didn't have any contact with them today to research any of that, so I don't know if they're doing that on their own or whatnot. So I will reach out to Karen and see where we're headed on that.
When's their next meeting, Evan?
Hold on. I believe it's the 18th. No, the 17th.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right, any other questions for Evan? All right, thank you. Why don't we move on to correspondence? Does anyone have any questions with regards to the correspondence they received in the packet? Evan, I just want to respond to, thank you for responding to the questions with regards to bags, and I see some bag availability issues and so on and so forth. Thanks for responding to that. Appreciate it. You and your staff for being on top of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. All right, so we'll go down to discussion for policy review. So we have a couple of policies for the board to discuss tonight. First one up is the Code Red Emergency Notification System Policy and Procedure.
So I would like to, if we could turn that over to Mr. Blake.
Okay,
He's been working on the policies and is now the policy expert. Whatever you need, we will go to him for that.
William, you have the floor.
Yep. Would you like the policies shared to the screen? Would that benefit everybody?
Does anyone have a copy of it? Do they need it shared to the screen?
I'd like it up on the screen. I have a copy, but it's nice to see on the same page and not toggle, if that's possible.
All right. Can everybody see this?
Looks good.
Okay. So for the Code Red emergency policy, this was largely a refresh of the policy that already existed. We wanted to put into the new format that we've been using and clean it up. We did make efforts to streamline it. The original policy made reference to several different forms and paperwork that were needed to actively use the system. We decided to get rid of the formal request form and turn it into a notification requirement to the town administrator and the police department. So that way everybody is on the same page and aware of what is going to be, everybody's aware of what we're going to be using Code Red for. We also included stipulations for emergency messages as well as non-emergency messages. There's been some discussion about using Code Red for non-emergency communications with the town. So we just wanted to make sure we had our bases covered with that. Beyond that, we prettied it up and made sure that it fit the new standard that we're moving towards. If anybody has any questions on that one, I can answer them.
Board members have any questions? Matt?
Yeah, just a quick one, not so much about the policy, but about Code Red itself. Is there a way to distinguish between emergency and non-emergency alerts?
I can answer that if you'd like, Will.
Go ahead.
You mean on the user's end or on the sender's end?
On the sender's end, so that when I'm receiving it, I know whether it's an emergency or non-emergency notification.
Yes, so I don't, both, you can do it on both ends. So you would have, in order to get a non-emergency alert, you would have to opt in to receive those alerts. So when you go to sign up for Code Red, there's a checkbox that says emergency alerts, and then there's a checkbox that says governmental alerts or governmental information or something along those lines. You would have to have checked that box to consent to get the non-emergent communications. And then they also come through on a different number so that it's not showing up as, you know, the emergency Code Red line.
Got it. Okay.
Questions? Doreen.
Just a couple quick questions. And again, not really particular to the policy, but just questions about Code Red. I wanted to know how often this contract was renewed. And the reason for the question is because we've had this system in place now. It's been great for several years. And I'm sure that there are constant updates in the system that Code Red is doing. And I just don't know how that would affect the policy going forward. And if it's something that we just want to kind of flag around the time that contracts are being renewed, for future boards to also take a look at this and maybe add things in. So really just a comment. And I guess if you don't know when the contract's renewed, I'm assuming it's like a 3 or 5 year contract, correct?
It's a 3-year contract. They did go through, so I've been with Code Red for, this is like year 9, I think. Previous employment as well as Grafton. So they were purchased by a company called OnSolve, and they are part of that hub now. That goes
Okay.
back about, I'd say 4 years, maybe more. And they did a pretty good job of not, blowing up the platform. It stayed pretty much the same, but does get a pretty frequent refresh, as well as some new functionality. They made some mapping changes and some things to make it a little easier for us to target specific streets and so on and so forth. So you could put language in that would trigger you to look at that contract and system. I don't know that you'd put it in this policy or maybe find some other way to trigger that conversation.
Mhm.
I don't know our current renewal date. I think it's next year, but I'd have to pull out that contract again.
Okay. I don't think the policy itself needs any changes. I just didn't know if, organizationally there was a way for us as a board and for staff to kind of track some of these policies based on their contract renewals, because it may end up being a good idea in the future. And then my last comment is just about marketing and communication to residents. And I guess this can be directed to Will. We always have a lot of new people moving into town, and as well as, I've had conversations with people who've lived here a long time, and like my parents, for example, who are older and don't know that Code Red exists. And so, and until I have the conversation or something comes up where they say, how did you know about that? It would just, maybe be a good idea. Again, like having this in front of me is reminding me that we should probably try to communicate to residents, especially in this day and age, to sign up for Code Red, and if there's a way to do that. And that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I think that's a great point, Doreen, and something that we probably overlook is how to reach out to people and ensure that the message is in front of them pretty consistently to sign up to get the messages. So, Will and I can put that on our agenda to talk about how to try to make that happen.
Great. Thank you.
Colleen?
So I was just looking at the Code Red sign up online for anybody who might not have seen this yet. And it's beyond just alerts. Like, you can find out when agendas get posted or meeting minutes or any news to a lot of different committees, and it can really be tailored pretty nicely. So if you're not already signed up, you should definitely be considering it, because there's a lot of things you can find out about. And I just wanted to share.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the policy here? So if there's no major revisions, we could bring this back at the next meeting and have it on our agenda to take action on and vote. Thank you, William. Let's move on to, I believe the next one is the certificate of good standing policy.
Yes, and I'll get that up on screen. Okay, so similar to the Code Red policy, this was largely a refresh to put it into the new format that we've been working with. We did completely redo the certificate of good standing form, and we made the decision to put it as an addendum to the policy as opposed to the policy itself. So that way, if we need to make any changes to the form in the future, we can do that and don't need to come back and amend the policy and anything of that nature. One thing that we are going to do with this, just in sort of a grander scale as we're putting the new policies up on the website, we're going to make this form fillable after it's been approved by everybody. So that way it's a bit more ease of access for people who are trying to fill it out and get it submitted. Just something we're going to be doing on the website end for feasibility and accessibility. But beyond that, the policy is largely similar. We just cleaned up the language a little bit and prettied it up.
All right, thanks, William. Any questions? I have one, William. And this might be going to you and Evan. Is there any way, I mean, this certificate is only good for 30 days of when it's issued. Is there any other community, or is there any discussion amongst municipalities about making it either 60 or 90 day? And if there's a good reason or not a good reason to do that?
Evan, I would defer to you on that one.
Okay. I believe, and I could be wrong, that the certificate of good standing is set at 30 days by statute. However, I would like some time to research that, because that's not something I've looked at in quite a while, and that's just top of mind. So I could certainly, we could get you that information and have that before the next meeting. As something that we need to clarify, if we can extend that time or not.
If there's a statute and a policy, it's calling out a statute and a policy, I would recommend that you put a reference to the statute.
Absolutely. Yep. Agreed 100%. So we will do our due diligence on that and update the policy accordingly. If it's statutory, and if not, we can bring it back for your conversation to see if we want to extend that time period.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. Just a question on my part, if there is a possibility. Colleen?
So my only question with that would be, is that a typical billing cycle is 30 days. So if you issue this that somebody's in good standing and it's good for 60 or 90 days, they could technically fall out of good standing while this was still issued, correct?
I think potentially. But at the same time, depending on your billing cycle, they could be in good standing at any point during that month, and it depends on when we renew. So why don't we just why don't you just give Will and I a little chance to do our due diligence, and then we'll bring it back to you for that particular part of the question.
Okay. Any other questions on the board on this policy? All right, we'll bring that back to the next meeting. All right. All right, next up, we have meeting minutes. We have a set here for November 16th of 2021. If anyone had a moment here to review them. I can entertain a motion whenever anyone's ready.
I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of November 16th, 2021 as submitted, including amendments.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? For the record, I will be voting, I will be abstaining from this motion, and I'll be doing roll call. All those in favor by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Mead?
Mead, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
And Carlson abstains. I declare the motion carried 4-0-1. Thank you. I think that's all we have for tonight. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everyone, we do have a workshop for next Tuesday. Just to give everyone a heads up, I did receive a call from Mr. Spinney today asking to be on our agenda to discuss just the developments with 27 Upton Street. And if the board's okay with that, we will add that to our Tuesday workshop. We have a pretty light workshop going forward, but if it's just going to be a single item, I didn't know how the board felt about maybe moving it to the 18th. just that topic to the 18th and not having a separate meeting next week.
Is he gonna come in, Peter, to in a workshop mode, or is this something that he wants a decision on?
I think it's just a workshop mode, just to discuss just what the developments are. There's
Oh.
probably a lot of questions we have, and there would be an opportunity to speak with the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, who's been working with Evan, from my understanding, on things that were leading up to the potential special town meeting, but seeing how that's not happening. Matt?
I'm just wondering if it would make sense to talk about that, but also workshop the kind of goals update. Would that be enough time for William and Evan to kind of package that up into a new presentation and go over that? It just seems like we're a little bit behind, and because we've had a lot of business to do that's kind of pushed back our goals a couple of months.
Evan, is that something you can be ready for next Tuesday? Given the current state of affairs in the town?
Yeah. Yep. We'll have to take some of the lead. I'm in that Suffolk class starting on Friday, so I'm gonna lose my whole day Friday. But I think we can probably get together before then, and maybe we can move in a direction. I think we'll, long story short, yes, I think we can do it.
Okay, so we can have those two items in there, Doreen.
Just wanted to mention too, one of our goals was to collaborate with the Affordable Housing Trust. And I know there's may not be significant time to hold something like this, but I'd be in favor of inviting the Affordable Housing Trust members, not just the chair, to a workshop meeting, to maybe begin doing that. If that's premature, we could just get an update and like Matt said, go over the board's goals. But I think, our intention was to do that anyway. So we could always maybe even push it out to the next workshop in order to do that. Whatever, the chair is comfortable with, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think we will be doing that in the future. And if we can line it up for next week, we might as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just in my conversation with Mr. Spinney earlier today, he was only really prepared. He didn't mention anything else. I could ask him to see if that's something that he can do or have ready, Doreen. And I can get back to you all on that and figure that out. But I think that's going to be up to him and if his board can meet. If not, pushing that off, maybe we can kind of peel this off a bit and still meet with the Affordable Housing Trust and collaborate, to your point. But he felt it was prudent to discuss sooner rather than later on just some of these developments with 27 Upton Street.
Yeah, sure thing. That's fine. And maybe, it could just be an initial conversation and we set something up with the Affordable Housing Trust in February or beginning of March. I'd like to do that.
Okay, we can work on that. Colleen?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Doreen. I really like that idea. If they can do a joint meeting next week, if it was already going to be light, to just capitalize on it. I do feel like we've been taking a lot of time off, so I'd rather be using as much time as we can when we can.
All right. Okay. Working on that and update you guys. I'll send the draft agenda out tomorrow once I hear back from Mr. Spinney, if that's reasonable. Other than that, we'll go forward with what his request was, if it's okay with the board, and not push that part of it off, but we will, on the larger topic of collaborating with them, meeting with them in the future, if we can't meet with them next week with the whole board and collaborate on some of their initiatives. All right. Okay. That's all I have. We have no reason to go into executive session. I can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
What was my roll call, please? Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Mead,
Mead eye.
Mr. Often,
Often I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.